Well, hello, folks. I'm DK Byrne, and I'm very lucky today to have Holly from The Holly Effect. And Holly is an expert in conscious parenting. So, for all parents out there like me, I'm sure that this is very, very important and interesting topic for you. So, welcome, Holly.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great to see you and great to meet you. And you've been involved in this area for quite some time, and you've noticed some patterns. In fact, you've noticed some three big mistakes that parents often make with their parenting. And the first one you've said is the way that they talk. Could you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So the three big problems in our relationships with our children is that there is resistance, there's disconnection, and there are power plays. And the way we talk to our children is what causes every ounce of the resistance. So when you have children who don't listen, or you have to repeat yourself 500 times, then they'll go one of two ways. They either get back chatty and they go against you a bit, or they withdraw and they isolate themselves and they go to their rooms and they just want to stay away from you. All of that comes from the way we talk to our children. It's the exact words and sentences we use, and it's profound. It's absolutely profound how one word change. Like, I don't even mean changing a whole sentence. I mean changing one single word within that sentence literally changes the part of your child's brain that is activated, and it determines whether or not your child's brain is listening to you through what's called their reptilian brain, which is their fight or flight response, which is where they argue or they run away and withdraw, or whether they're able to hear what you've said through what's called their mammalian brain, which is where all connection takes place, and it's actually where the memory is housed. And so I talk to parents a lot about this. And, it seems almost hard to believe until the next day after I teach them this, the next morning, like literally hours after they learn this, just changing one word in the whole sentence. And I'll get messages or, posts will go up on my Facebook groups like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Like, what the hell just happened? I used this word, or I changed this word. And, within seconds, they did what I normally have to repeat myself 10 times to get them to do. So the way we talk to our kids, it literally determines our child's sense of self, their level of self-esteem. But more importantly, it literally determines what part of their brain is activated every single time we talk to them, and therefore it determines what their response will be. And our children have no control over that. They aren't able to control which part of their brain is active or activated. We are the ones, as parents. It's a bit of a tough pill to swallow because it requires owning our shit and taking some responsibility. But if we change the language, the words we use, if there are certain words we bring into our vocabulary, certain words we completely omit from our vocabulary forever, everything changes. Everything changes.
And it's fascinating, Holly, because it makes me think that, some people hearing about conscious parenting might think, oh, maybe it's a little bit woo-woo and new age or something. But it seems to me it's very scientific, both in physics and quantum physics, and also neuroscience, when you're talking about how it affects the brain and how important it is when their little brains are being so programmed in these early stages of their lives. And this whole idea of also struck me that, what we resist persists, what we oppose grows. So, when we're being so resistant and oppositional, we're actually encouraging the behavior that we don't want in a way.
100%. It's exactly what happens. The subconscious mind only thinks in pictures, right? So for example, if I was to show you the letter C, A, and R, what do you see in your mind? You don't see a C, an A, and an R. You see a picture of a car. And this is how the subconscious mind programs itself. So as we speak to our children, the words are translated into images. They are then stored as files. Imagine there's like a filing cabinet in the subconscious mind. And the only file that is available to the child when it comes to choosing their behavior or, you know, making a decision on how they're going to handle a situation, the only files they've ever got to access are those that exist in their filing cabinet, and we are the ones that put every single one of those files there. And this is where the way we talk to our children unintentionally, literally, you know, the most well-intended parents just don't understand, have never had it taught to them that the language you use is often strengthening the file, the very file that you don't want your child to use.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think it's important for parents to know it's not our fault, because this is passed down through generations. And I hear parents in the supermarket and in the mall and stuff speaking to their children that way, in a very oppositional, very resistant way. And you just know straight away, because that's how they were trained. So it was passed down through generations, isn't it?
Exactly. Which is why breaking these toxic generational cycles it's not easy, because we only access the files we've got as well, which is based on how we were raised and society, and, you know, the ideas that we're exposed to most often, the environments that we place ourselves in. So that part of it, when I say isn't easy, what will naturally come to you is exactly the file that parents I work with all the time don't want to use. Like the most common thing I hear are parents who come to me brokenhearted with their hand up saying, I know I'm stuffing it up. I know I get it wrong sometimes. And every single part of me is aware of that. And I don't want to do that, but I don't know how not to. Like, I try so hard and I still lose my shit. So yeah, that all comes into play, both for the parent and for the child.
Yes, which brings us to big mistake number 2, and that's, you've said it's the way that parents discipline their children. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Holly?
I would absolutely love to. One of my favorite parts to talk about is this. So the second problem that we faced in our relationships with our children was disconnection. And it's the way we discipline our children that causes all of this disconnection. Essentially, it comes down to people punish their children. And we think we're doing the right thing. And so what I teach is it's not about punishment, but consequence. I'm all for healthy boundaries, firm boundaries, consequences. Consequences provide real learning opportunities for a child. Punishments are the cause of anger problems. All they do is create shame, blame, and pain. And then that results in anxieties, depressions, you know, God forbid, the scary part, addictions, suicides, all that. And, you know, I hate to mention it, but it's sad. I used to hear this from parents that had teenagers, you know, maybe 14 to 16-year-olds. And these days I'm hearing it from parents who come to me with an 8-year-old. I mean, I've worked with families who had a 9-year-old who had autism and ADHD, but was so suicidal at 9 years old that they had to hide the knives in their house. It was a scary situation. So it's so sad that this happens earlier, but essentially it's just the way we discipline. There is a way to discipline without losing connection, because if your child can feel safe to take on the learning experience, to actually own the mistake, what their soul searches for is connection with us. They want it from us even more than we want it from them, right? Like it's literally the foundation of their survival, being able to be connected to their herd. It's where they find their safety. And so there is a way to be able to discipline your child in a way that actually changes their behavior, not because you said you better change or else, you know, but because the child, in the safety of the way the parent is able to provide that discipline and apply a relatable consequence. It's not punishments. The purpose of a punishment is typically just to hurt the child, to teach them a lesson. And it doesn't teach them lessons. All it does is teach them to be very, very creative to learn how to get better at getting away with it. Punishments are the guarantee that your children will learn to lie and manipulate. Consequences, very different. And so, yeah, I teach a lot about what's the difference between a consequence and a punishment, and how do you deliver, including using the right words to stay connected with your child, so that, so I mean, the word discipline comes from the root word disciple, which means to learn. So for discipline to actually have taken place, there must have been a learning experience. But if the child is scared in this moment, or being punished and being hurt and being shamed and blamed, and it's all creating emotional pain, then they have no option but to go into the part of their brain that protects them. And in that space, they are not able to learn. Their brain will not record this file in the filing cabinet to become an option for their behavior next time. Does that make sense?
It sure does, Holly. And it just reminds me of this saying that I heard recently, was it ran in my family till it ran into me. And that just shows that we have the responsibility and power, really, to stop this generational stuff that's happened from all of this punishment and all this, generational shame and pain, which, as you said, results in terrible things like addictions and anxiety and depression and suicide. So it just seems like such an amazing gift that we can step up and stop all of that. Would you say?
Without a doubt. I really feel on a spiritual level that we are the generation that is being called to this. I mean, on a spiritual level, it makes all the sense to me why we have this generation of children coming through who, I believe, at a soul level know exactly why they're here, which is why they do not care for the status quo. They don't care about your cute little timeline that you want to keep in the mornings, or the bedtime routine idea that you've got. These neurodivergent children even coming through, they are calling us forward to our higher levels of expansion in order to learn how to raise this child, connect with this child, have a relationship. Like, we have to grow. It's creating a paradigm shift, and the paradigm shift is that we need to show up for ourselves and for our children, take some responsibility, and change how we are showing up, so that the child has a different environment to be able to grow and expand in.
Well, it just reminds me just what important work it is. We discussed together that we both believe that there's an enormous awakening of consciousness happening on the planet. And, this is just such important work with our kids. And which brings us to, I believe it's all about love. And you said that's the third big mistake that parents unconsciously make, is the way that they love. Could you expand on that a little bit, Holly?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you. The way that we love our children, or the way that we accidentally and unintentionally unlove our children, is what creates the power plays in the relationships. And so I teach a lot on love languages, and most people don't even know of what a love language is, or that we all have a love language. But our love languages are essentially the language of our soul. And there are 5 different love languages. And what I've actually found, and I've run the stats on this in my program over the last 5 years, 87% of people who have come to work with me who thought they did know their child's love language actually had it wrong. And learning your child's love language is crucial, because, for example, if you tell me you love me 1,000 times a day, but you speak Chinese and I only understand English, it doesn't matter how many times you told me you love me today, I never heard you say it once. And I know parents love their children, but if we look at our own childhoods, we see the examples of that in pretty much every single relationship with a parent, there's either at least one parent, if not both parents, that as an adult, you can look back logically with your neocortex part of your brain and go, oh, I know my mom loved me. I know my dad did his best. Like, now I understand it. I know they did their best. But it doesn't change the fact that while you were growing and developing, you didn't feel like they loved you. And that's not because they didn't love you. It's because the language that they were communicating love to you with was not the language that you could translate. We often have almost always have different love languages to our children. And I believe that's because that's how we come to our higher levels of consciousness, having to lean in and know that. So knowing how to offer love to our child in a way that they can actually translate it and receive it is crucial. And the second part of that is, if you don't know your child's love language, you are not able to discipline them effectively either, without crushing their spirit, without breaking, their sense of self. And again, it's unintentional. We just don't know, right? But ultimately, we cannot raise our children the same way. This is one of the biggest mistakes I see parents doing. This is why there's so much sibling rivalry and the kids are at each other all the time. It's because, again, most well-intended parents are just trying to be fair and trying to give everyone the same and do all of the same. But when we raise our children the same way, you see, different people have different needs. And what that means is somebody's needs are getting met and somebody's needs are not. So I teach something around, fairness is not sameness. Something that's fair. What's fair is that you get your needs met and you get your needs met. But what you need and what you need are two very different things, because you're two very different people. And so we don't do things the same, but we absolutely do it fairly. If you don't know your child's love language, you can, if when it comes to discipline, without knowing, you're using their love language against them. Let's say, for example, your child is words of affirmation, and when it comes to discipline, you yell at that child, you say mean things that you regret and you wish you didn't say later. Like that crushes, that violates that child's deepest need, because words are like their sacred language. Words, if you're a words of affirmation person, you can still remember that one time in your life, that one day where your parent or your coach or your school teacher said that one thing to you. Let words stay with you. You hold them at the base of your soul if they are your love language. So, when it comes to discipline with a words child, I don't advocate for smacking or anything like that, but you're better, if you're going to lose your shit, you're better to, squeeze that child's arm or something and shove them than you are to say something mean to that child, right? Because that's the language of their soul. And then, but if you put it the other way around, if you have another child whose love language is touch, you can't ever make touch feel unsafe to that child, because that's the language that they translate love through. So if you don't know the love language, you can be doing all this amazing work in your parenting and then completely crushing them when it comes to discipline, simply because you didn't know.
Well, I totally agree. And it's just so important. It's another thing you've mentioned that's so important. And I'm sure parents at home are starting to get the idea of how important that particular bit is as well, the love language. Now, Holly, I know that you have a bit of a secret. You're doing work that is very, very rare. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you. Look, the secret is really understanding your child energetically. Your child, and this especially goes for neurodivergent children, in that they feel you vibrationally more than they will ever listen to you verbally. And so understanding that your child is a little person, they're not a robot, right? They're a person, they're adaptable, they're resilient, they change. And when you look at their behaviors, behavior is never random. Ever random. Behavior is nothing other than your child's attempt to get their needs met. And so you don't have to work on that. If you can identify what need your child is attempting to have met by using that behavior, and then you find a healthier way to meet that need, you don't ever have to work on the behavior. The behavior dissolves all on its own. This is why today I have pediatricians and psychologists and counselors and even psychiatrists that refer their patients, their families, the children they work with to me once they aren't able to get results anymore. And all I offer beyond that is understanding your child from a soul perspective, understanding their human experience and what's actually going on for them spiritually, energetically, vibrationally, rather than just looking at them as from a behavior point of view. And Once you know how to do that, once you know how to meet your child in that experience and hold a space for them, still address the issue. I don't believe in permissive parenting where you're never offering boundaries and consequences and things like that. I personally don't believe in that, or gentle parenting or anything. Like, it's okay to have boundaries and be firm. We're here to teach our children about life, and welcome to life. There are boundaries, and there are certain ways we need to show up sometimes. So, but understanding how to meet them energetically and consciously is the biggest secret of all.
Understand. So, Holly, can you tell me, is this for all parents, or is it a certain type of parent?
Great question. My answer is all parents. I mean, we are all here in a human experience ourselves. I have people that I've worked with that come in with actually pregnancies, like, that are so aware of their own trauma from their own childhood, and then they get pregnant and they're like, I get it. I don't want to do to my child, what happened to me. So we've had people come in before they've even had babies, all the way through to right now. I have someone that I work with in my program who has adult children, 27-year-old and 24-year-old. So there really is no age, because ultimately they are still your child, and your relationship with your child, no matter what age they are, is important to you. So there absolutely is no restriction on age. The people that I can help the most are people who are willing to own it to some degree, who can go, hey, I'm going to put up my hand. I know I've stuffed it up. I know I've made some mistakes, and I'm not doing it to beat myself up. This isn't about beating ourselves up about it. It's, hey, I did the best I knew how to do, but it still isn't enough for me. I want to be better, and I'm willing to, to swallow the tough pill and to, sit with the uncomfortable truths, and be willing to change myself. And if there's anyone that's, in that mindset or has a willingness to explore those edges, it's life-changing. It's generational changing.
Yes, it sounds like it is, and it's so important. And Holly, I was also wondering, is there I know it would vary from person to person, depending on the relationship, the age, and all sorts of things, but is there a general amount of time that people can expect till they start seeing real change?
24 hours, and I'm not even joking. I do not say that lightly. I totally respect that that's, too good to be true, but I have the proof of it. Repeatedly, I have the proof of it. The next day, if you come with a open and willing heart, and you let what resonates land deeply with you, there is a shift. Not even a whole day later. I mean, the next time you speak with your children, the next morning when you're getting ready for school or whatever it might be, the next time that you communicate with your child, you feel a shift, and your approach, and therefore their response, is immediately different. In terms of, the children kind of are like, what is this? What's going on here? Like, I'm not familiar with the parent that approaches me like this. So in terms of, like a solid permanent state, maybe 2 weeks. I've worked with, that child I mentioned before, who had been seeing a psychologist for 5 years, every fortnight, like absolute impeccable, showed up every fortnight for 5 years. And we were able to get him results and completely have him healed in 5 weeks, to the point where that psychologist was, one of the first people that started referring to our program. So that was a very extreme scenario, and it still only took 5 weeks, because his parent, his mum, was willing to show up differently and to learn how to connect with him on a soul level, and it changed his world.
Well, Holly, this has been a magnificent chat, and it's been very educational for me. It's been very enlightening for me. Before we finish up, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
My message is this: I know the struggles of parents. I truly know it. And I know that as tough as it is to sit and hear the hard truths, it's important to keep in mind that, your heart knows your answers. Your heart knows that the things you currently say and do and the ways you treat your children. I mean, you wouldn't even be here being open to listening to an interview or engaging with anything like this if it didn't matter to you. And I feel like we can definitely get bogged down in how hard parenting is and how, it wasn't meant to be like this and this isn't what I had in mind. And, all of those things, all of those experiences are very real for you, for the parent. And so my message is just that, to open yourself, open your mind, open your heart, and never stop looking for those answers, because they do exist. But I believe the answer is more of a spiritual answer. I believe we've come as far as we'll probably go in looking at behaviors and how to control our children and how to change our children, because it's one thing to control them when they're younger, but then ultimately what we want for our children when they're ready to leave the nest is we want to hand over to the world this confident, independent, I know what I want to do with my life kind of person. But we can't expect to raise a child that we are highlighting all the time where they're wrong, where they're bad, where they don't get it right, and then end up with a person who feels confident about approaching life. So yeah, it is important to, when something resonates with you, particularly when it comes to your children, I believe that's life calling you forwards. It's your soul letting you know that you are ready to do the work and to break those cycles. And you don't just break the cycle for your family, for your child. You break the cycle for all of the generations to come.
Well, that's beautiful, Holly. And I'm sure that mums and dads watching, probably like you and like me, wear several hats, and who agree that we do, that the role of parent is just probably the most vital one. They're going to want to get in touch with you. So, Holly, how do they do that?
There's a number of ways. The easiest way is just the link on this page. Just, go to that link, follow the prompts, reach out. We can help you on whichever level. There's different levels that you can work on this, work on yourself, work on your parenting. And we're here to help work out, where are you at? Where do you need us to meet you in your experience and be able to open up what's next for you? So if you click the link on this page, you can follow your nose and go where you need to from there.
Well, thank you, Holly, and folks out there. There's no cost, no risk to get in touch with Holly. And I think if it's touched you as deeply as it has me, then I'd highly encourage you to get in touch with Holly for your kids, for yourself, for your future generations. So thank you so much, Holly. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much, DK. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.